So how exactly is Captain Marvel going to fit into everything, considering it's going to be the second film that's a prequel to Iron Man 1, and it has to set up a lot like the Avengers Initiative and where other characters might go, such as Nick Fury and of course Agent Coulson. Let's talk about an out-of-nowhere mention of Tony Stark. So during some recent interviews, the directors of Captain Marvel were specifically asked in regards to Captain Marvel's role in the MCU, why the film is set in the 90s, what this offers them, and why this was a choice. And while talking about the fact that, this is going to be a movie that predates Iron Man 1, it gives them a lot of room to explore this time period that we haven't touched upon in the MCU. Now, at the same time, while talking about this, out of nowhere, they just mentioned, look, this is before Nick Fury actually, becomes the Nick Fury we all know, and this is kind of the first step. And then they just add in there, this is before Tony Stark is Iron Man. And a lot of people are kind of like, why is this even brought up? With a lot of theories out there that we could potentially see a young Tony Stark in this movie. And honestly, we've seen a younger Tony Stark before. They have the technology right there, and every time they use it, it's getting cheaper and cheaper. Like, we see that Nick Fury is going to be de-aged the entire time throughout the movie. So clearly, 2 minutes of this footage that used to cost $20 million a few years ago has dropped down in, cost and price because it's evolving, they're finding cheaper ways to do it, they're finding better ways to do it, technology's getting better, so they can pull it off for half the movie now. So really wouldn't surprise me if something like this could happen. Now, at the same time, how do you work Tony Stark into the mid-90s, right? And what's the point of this? So realistically, you could have something where he's on a TV, right? That's always an option. During Iron Man 1, we see the montage of the magazines and everything, and Obadiah Stane and everything like that. You could have something like that where there's a news report about Tony Stark and something that's happening with him and show a younger Tony there. And realistically, this would work, but I don't think you're running into something where it's like Captain Marvel is running down the street and she ends up bumping into someone and he's like, oh, man, wow, you got a shoulder of iron. Like a Gotham pun to be like, he's Iron Man, and she bumped into him in the iron because he's, I don't think it's going to be nothing like that. Certainly, I don't think Marvel would put something like that in there. But this does offer them the opportunity to kind of show what the 90s were like, even if it's a small, tiny little cameo, which I think realistically something like this will happen personally. It's fun, right? You can have a little bit of fun with it, and I think that's what it's really about. It's nothing to be like, oh, look, Tony Stark's gonna show up and he fixes her ship. It's like, no, that wouldn't make sense. But a small little cameo on TV or a magazine, that's probably expected, to appear somehow, right?